Hi guys, welcome back to another video on Docker. In this video, I'm going to be creating a very small MERN stack application and I will be Dockerizing it using Docker files, Docker Compose, and I will be using Docker Hub image for MongoDB. I will not be downloading or installing MongoDB in my system. Instead, I will be pulling up the MongoDB image from the Docker Hub. So MERN stack means Mongo, Express, React, and Node. The purpose of this video is to learn Docker, so the apps that I will be creating for Node and React will not be that much big. All right, so I've created an empty folder and I've opened up in my VS Code. Meanwhile, if you are a beginner, if you just want to learn Docker, let me show you my channel. I've already created a couple of videos on Docker. If I show you view full playlist, you can see that Docker tutorial for beginners, what is Docker commands, Dockerfile, and all the different commands that I'll be explaining you. I would highly recommend you guys to start checking out this video before starting off configuring any project with Docker. But if you have a little bit understanding about Docker, then you are good to go. And you can see that I've already created a video on configuring Docker in React.js for dev and production environment as well. Okay, so I'll be creating few more videos on Docker that can consist of Next.js 14 and also continuous integration and continuous deployment when we integrate Docker in our projects. I will try to explain each and every step that I will be doing in this video for configuring Docker in MERN stack project. Along with that, I will request you guys to subscribe my channel. As you can see, I'm putting a lot of effort. I've already created 145 videos on my channel, so it will really encourage me to make more videos for you guys. And also, this is the MongoDB image from Docker Hub that I will be pulling in and use it in my Node Express application, which is the backend. All right, so let's first start off creating our backend project using Node Express and MongoDB. So in this folder, first of all, I'm gonna be creating a new folder and I can name it API. Okay, and let me get inside this folder from the terminal. So cd API, and I will be initializing it first of all with npm init, and it's going to ask me few questions, so I'll simply hit enter API. Yes, let's go. And yes, so this is created and it has created this default package.json file. All right, if you are not understanding what is this file, I've already created a complete crash course consist of 42 videos on Node Express MongoDB. You can learn that from that playlist. I've given the link of all the playlist in the description of this video. So inside the API, first of all, I'm going to be installing few dependencies which will be required to create couple of APIs, because for integrating Docker, we need to test that if the functionality is working fine or not. So I will be writing npm install cores, and I will be creating cores express and then mongoose. Okay, so I'll hit enter. It's going to create a new key over here in this file, and it's going to create node modules folder and also package lock.json file, because this is the required files that it needs to run the project. Okay, so these are added and these files are created. Now I'm going to be creating a new file here, so I will be writing index.js. Okay, so in this file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a small server first of all using Express in order to test this out. So I will be writing require Express. Okay, and then I will be fetching the cores which I have just added, so require cores. Let's add the mongoose which I have just added, so require mongoose. And then I will be creating a new app using Express. Okay, then I will be adding some middleware, so app.use cores. Okay, and then I will be creating another middleware, app.use express.json. All right. And after this, I'm gonna be creating a small server. So let's add that. Uh, so this is going to be app.listen, and then I can give it any port. So our front-end app will be running on port 3000, which is the React default port. So for backend, I can give it 4000 port. Okay. So let's give it like this. So I'm gonna be just logging in. Server is running on port 4000. All right. So after this, let me add one default API route so that when I try to test this out on my browser, it works fine. So I'm going to write this one so I can, let's give it API API slash notes. Okay. And then I can write the async this thing like, and inside this I'm simply going to return the response. So response dot status equals to 200, and then I can simply return the JSON data. So message equals to this is my API. Okay. For now, I'll just be removing this. Later on, I'll be adding it back. So our basic setup is here. Let me try and test this out. So ls, and yes, I'm inside it. So I'm simply going to run node index.js. All right, so server is running on port 4000. Let's try to test this out by running localhost colon 4000 slash API slash nodes in my browser. So let's open this up. So I'm simply going to write localhost slash 4000 slash API slash nodes. And yes, our server is running because this is the message I returned from my API. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating another file, and this is going to be a MongoDB model using mongoose. Okay. So I'm going to copy paste the model because this is not the purpose of this video. I want to finish up the actual implementation quickly because I want to talk about Docker. Okay, so this is the mongoose package, and I've used mongoose.schema constructor, and then I have this title of type string, content of type string, and created at will be having default date, whatever it is currently. Okay, and then we have this model name node. This is what I will be importing in my index.js file. So let's close this file and go over here, and inside it I'm gonna be writing node equals to require, and this has to be node. Okay, so mongoose and the node model will be used to fetch the data out of the database of the MongoDB and to store the data in the MongoDB with respect to the model which I have created that has title, content, and created at properties. Okay, after this, what I'm gonna do is I need to connect to the MongoDB. Okay, so mongoose connect, and this is the default URL, but currently let's leave it like this. Later on, I will be passing this URL as an environment variable from my Docker Compose file. Okay, so here I'm going to write use new URL parser um, true, and then use unified. All right, so unified topology, and this is going to be true here. All right, so let's save it. And after this, what I'm gonna do is I need to detect if I'm able to connect with MongoDB properly or not. So I'm going to write dot at the end. In fact, let's try enter. So then, and then console log connected to MongoDB, and then I'm going to write catch. It's going to give me the error, so I can simply write console log and then the error. All right, so we have actually connected with it, but it will not work currently because I'm not pulling any MongoDB image from the Docker Hub, and because of this reason I cannot test this actually. Okay, um, so let's leave it like this. We have pretty much set up our structure, which is the use new URL parser and use unified topology. These are just some required, or you can call it optional parameters. Okay, so let's save this file. So we have actually set this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove let's leave it like this. I'm going to actually return the data by fetching it from this particular model because we are already connected with the MongoDB. Okay, so let's bring back the async, and now try and then const nodes equals to await node find, and after this I'm simply returning the nodes from here. Okay, and since this is JSON, so I can simply write this one fetched nodes successfully, and I can pass another property, let's say the data equals colon nodes. All right, and if there might be some error, I can simply return, let's remove it, and I can simply add and return some error with the 500, that error fetching nodes, try again, something like that, and I'm just returning this error message. Okay, so we are done by writing our get API. Now similar to this, I can have the post API quickly by writing app dot post API slash nodes async. So let's try to uh, add it. So I'm just going to copy this try code and I'm going to paste it. And first of all, what I need to do is I need to create one model property. So we can have node, and in Node Express, we know that we can fetch the data from request.body. Okay, so I can fetch the title and content from the client, and I'll be using Postman to test this out. For the React application, I will just be using this API to get the data. The purpose is to sync back and front end using Docker and how we can configure it. All right. So there seems an error. Let's close it with the parentheses. All right. So we have added this. Now what we can do is we can save this notes within the try block. So we have saved it. Let's try to add the catch block as well. And inside the catch block, we can simply return the error message because there is an error message with the 500. Um, and I think we are pretty much done. We have just saved the notes, and then we are simply returning the saved note which we have actually done. All right. And at the end, like we can simply add this particular route that will handle the not found route. So any route which is not found, which is other than API slash nodes, we are simply returning 404, that page not found. So we are done with creating a simple small Node Express MongoDB application. This will not work because I have not even downloaded MongoDB in my local system. I have not even connected my mongoose with Mongo Atlas or online database. So I will leave it like this for now. Later on, I will be passing an environment variable of the MongoDB image from the Docker Hub. So let's leave it like this. I'm going to be creating a new React application parallel to this API folder. Okay, so I'm going to write npx create React app and I'm going to name it client. All right, so let's hit enter and it's going to download all the dependencies for the React application, uh, and we are going to proceed from there. All right, so it's creating a new React application. You can see that it has created a folder, and inside this API folder, I'll come back to it. I will be creating a new Docker file as well, which is important because Docker Compose require Docker file to run different commands which are required, which are added to install the different dependencies, to copy the folders from the local directory to the container, which I've already explained you in my previous Docker videos if you have a little bit understanding about the topic. Okay, and I'll be explaining you once I will be writing the Docker file, why I'm writing that particular line in that file. Okay, so currently it's creating that. It will take some time, I think. So if I open up the client folder, so you can see that it's taking some time. All right, so project is created for the React. I'm going to open up the source folder and I'm going to open up the app.js. This is the default UI. So whatever the APIs that I've just created for the nodes in my backend, I want to call that get API using API slash nodes. And I want to use that in my React project. And I will be running both of these projects using one command. I will be showing you when I will configure Docker in both of these projects. Okay. So here for this particular file, first of all, what I need to do is at the top, um, I will be importing the hooks. I hope that you have an understanding of React. So use affect and use state. These are going to be coming from React. All right. And then I can actually import Axios, which I need to install yet. So let's go inside client in the terminal, npm install Axios. I can use fetch as well. It's up to you. Okay. So use effect and use state. After this, within this app component, I'm going to be creating a state variable, nodes and the set nodes. This I can give it null. Okay, and then it has actually I'm using the tab 9 AI assistant, so it's just giving me some default structure of how we can call some Axios. So it has actually written this, so I'm just going to remove this part. Instead, I'm going to write http colon localhost colon 4000 slash API slash nodes, because this is where our backend server will be running, and this is the path of get API. Okay, then response, and here I'm setting the response dot data. Okay, so this is where the response will be received. All right, so for debugging, I can simply log this data out as well. So response dot data as well. All right, and after this I can actually render this data out. Okay, so I'm just going to copy paste to save some of our time of the complete UI. Let's remove it, and we have this data, so let's copy the nodes. If nodes exist, then it's going to map through the whole data, and it's going to print out the node title and the node content. So if node does not exist, until then it will keep on showing loading on the page. I hope that you have an understanding of JSX, how React works, and how these components and hooks actually work. So I think there is no error in this file, and we are done with the configuration of this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this API folder for the backend, and I'm going to create a new file. So this is going to be a Docker file. We cannot change its name, but if we want to change its name, we can actually write .dev or .prod after writing the dot staging, something like that. Okay, for now, since we don't have a dev or prod files for this particular project, I'm simply going to leave it Docker file. Okay, so this file actually used to build an image for this project, and through that image we can run the containers. Okay, so first of all, what I need to do is I need to give it the tools that are required to run our node project. So the main tool that is required is node itself. Okay, so because node is get installed, npm will be automatically installed. So from I can give it the version of node, so I can write 20. Let me check my node version in my system. If it's the reason I'm using my version, because if the project is running locally in my system successfully, it will work fine on the hosting server as well. Okay, then I will be running the command using run keyword. So npm install -g nodemon. Okay, nodemon is used to rerun the server whenever we make any change in the files. Okay, React automatically does it, but in Node we have to use nodemon. So I'm installing nodemon globally in the container. Container is the running form of image. All right, so then I'm going to write the work directory. This is going to be the app directory. This directory is not local. This directory is for the container that we will be running out of that image of this project. Okay, and then I will be copying all the files of this project that are required to run this code. The main file is the app.js and index.js, and you can say like a package.json file. So I can simply write dot. It refers all the files in my API directory, and then I'm going to write dot after that again. This dot, first dot is my local files within the API directory, and second dot is the path of the container, which is the app which I have already provided. Okay, and after that I can run npm install. Node is already installed, and NodeMon is already installed. We are already inside the container app directory. We have already given it the path from the local directory structure to the container app directory structure. Now npm install will work. Okay, and after that we can expose the port. So for backend, I'm going to give it the 4000 port. Then I'm going to give the command. So I can write npm run, and then I can write start. Okay, because this is the command. Let's go over here, and I need to modify it over here as well because I'm installing nodemon. So I can write start, and inside it I can write nodemon hyphen l index.js. Okay, so this command is going to run this command. This is going to run index.js. Index.js is going to run the Express server. This is how the flow is going to work. All right, so we have written Dockerfile, and for your learning, we can have just like git ignore, we can have the docker ignore file as well. So inside this file, what I can do is I can simply write different folders like the node modules. I don't want it to be included in the docker image because the npm install will automatically going to generate this. And I can also add the package log.json. This is also going to gets created when the docker is going to run npm install from this line. Okay, so this is just for your learning. So we are done with creating Dockerfile, and we can test this out once we write docker compose command. And the reason I'm not able to test this out because I need to use Mongo image from the Docker Hub. And for that, I will be installing that, pulling that up in my Docker Compose file, which will be outside of both of these folders because I want to use one command to run both of these projects. All right, so let's close this up. Let's close this Docker file as well. Instead, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in the client folder as well because I need the Docker file in the client folder as well in my front end application. Okay, so I'm going to give the same node version. I don't need nodemon. It works on the backend, and I'm going to give this one, and I can copy package JSON file as well manually. Okay, and after this I can also copy all the files, so it's up to us. I'm just showing you different variations of copying local folders into the container app folder. All right, so after this let's try to install this all the packages of the react, and I'm going to expose it to port 3000 because by default react runs on port 3000. And in package.json file, the start command will already added the start command, so I don't need to modify that. So we are done with creating the docker file. And now what I'm gonna do is we need to create a new file outside this. So I'm going to name it docker compose. We cannot change its name, make sure. So we can write yml or yaml, both works. Okay, so this is going to get more interesting from here. I'm going to first give the version of this docker compose. Okay, this is the version currently, the latest version, I think. So after this, I'm going to give the services. Services involves all the Docker Hub images that we can make it the part of the service, or we can make the local images as a part of the service. So the first thing that I want to add as a service, which is independent, is to pull the MongoDB. All right, so I'm going to name it Mongo. You can write anything over here. And after this, indentation is very important. I can write the image and I can give the name to it, Mongo. And this Mongo is actually referring to this name. This is the image. We cannot change its name. It's going to go to this particular Docker Hub and it's going to find this particular name. So this is what we have used over here. All right, and then I need to give it the container name. This can be anything, so I can write the mongo underscore c, so mongo container. And then I'm going to give the volumes are used to persist data. When container restarts, it stops and then restarts. Then volume helps in persisting data because it stores the data out of the container in the local, you can say, the virtual machine of the Docker engine. Okay, so after this, I need to give the name of it, and I'm going to add it like this. Then I need to give the path of MongoDB. So MongoDB's default path is data/db. Okay, make sure you add the exact path which I've added over here. And this volume is something which we can add at the end of this file, which I need to do. So let's wait for that. Uh, After this, one last thing that we need to add is the ports for MongoDB. So MongoDB by default runs over 27017 colon, and again I'm going to give 27017. So this path, we can write anything over here, and this is the exact port that you need to write, and this is the local port which will be used running in the Docker container. So I have just given the same ports, so it does not make any difference. All right, so MongoDB is going to get installed when I will be running the Docker Compose. But before that, let's try to run the Docker file of the backend, because I'm going to download the MongoDB, and after that, I'm going to run the service for the backend. So let's give the name build. Let's use this suggestions which my tab 9 plugin is giving of my VS Code. So build. So build path, I need to give the path of my folder, the backend folder, and this is the path. This is the API path with respect to this Docker Compose. So dot slash and the API. The path, not the this is not the path of this API folder. This is the path of the Docker file within the API folder. Okay, and the container name, let's go with it, API C, and then ports are going to be, because let's give it 4000, which will be running. Let's give the default port that is set in the Docker file, which is the 4000. Okay, and then one important thing that I want to show you is depends on. Okay, depends on is Mongo. So what I'm doing is I want MongoDB to be pulled from the Docker Hub first of all. Until and unless it completes its process, I don't want this Docker file of the API to start executing, because this backend is dependent on the database to, if for APIs to start working to fetch the data from the MongoDB database. You can write depends upon and give the name of that service which I've given over here. All right, so I've given this Mongo. All right, and then what I can do is I can give the volumes and I can give the environments as well. This is where we are going to pass the environment variable. So for the volumes, I can simply write this, and I need to give the path and then the path of the container. Okay, and then I don't want to persist data of the node modules. Okay, other than this, I want to persist data for all other files except this node modules folder. So .api, which is the local directory, and this app is the directory of the container which I gave over here, the work directory. All right, and then I can give the path of it. So Mongo URL, I can give the path. The indentation is very important. Let's move it forward. So Mongo URL, MongoDB, Mongo C. Actually, it's only Mongo, and then I need to give my DB, which is the path which I have added over here. this we can name it like this. All right. um, and now we can actually run this backend docker and convert the backend into a docker image. All right. So before actually start adding the service for the client side, let's try to test this out. uh, for one more thing that I need to do is, if I go to index, let's copy mongo underscore url index.js. I need to remove this, and I can fetch that process.env dot that particular mongo url, and docker compose is going to pass this path to this index.js file. All right. So in the terminal, first of all, I'm going to show you if there are any images already installed in my system. No, there are no images. All right. So the command that I'm going to run is, let's go out of the client folder, and I'm going to run the command docker compose up. Okay, it's automatically going to trigger docker compose, and it's going to run through all of these services. First, it's going to go through mongo. It's going to download that from Docker Hub. Then it's going to run this service. After the Mongoose is installed, because of this depends upon uh, this key. And then it's going to run the Docker file of this API, and it's going to build an image of this backend project that we have created. It's going to run all of these commands, and also we can after that we can run the container to see if our backend is running properly or not. All right. So let's hit enter in the terminal. I hope there will not be any. So service Mongo refers to the undefined volume Mongo data in valid compose project. So let's see what goes wrong in it. We have this Mongo, which is the name of that service. Okay, so at the end, what I forgot to do is I needed to add the volumes, which I explained you earlier. So I need to add the volumes, and this is going to be Mongo data. All right, so let's save this file. Now I'm going to run that docker compose up command again. All right, so it should start working, compiling the data. So I will not be pausing the video. I will be going through the process that it is. So you can say first process is Mongo pulling. It's pulling the MongoDB image from Docker Hub. So it's downloading. It might take some time. So once it completes the download, it will run the MongoDB on this URL, which I have given over here. All right. And once it completes, it's going to come to the next service, the API, and it's going to detect the path of Docker file. So it's downloading, it's taking some time. So the size of MongoDB image is 254 MB. All right. So until then, let me pause this video. All right, so here you can see that it completed downloading the MongoDB from that Docker Hub, and after that, it started running the Docker Compose file of our backend project. Let's allow it. So I have allowed it to access the files. I have allowed this terminal. All right, so I think it has started running node space index.js file, and I have not run this command separately. I have simply running the docker-compose.yml. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my browser and try to run localhost colon 4000. All right. So this is where, and I'm going to refresh this, and our Docker container is running actually. That's why it has returned this particular message, and there is no data in the MongoDB. That's why there it has returned an empty array. And okay, and I can fill this data actually. And one more thing that I want to show you, I can use the Docker desktop, and I can show you that MERN is the name of folder that contain both Mongo C and the API C images, which is the container. Let me show the images. So both the images were created, and for that images the container started running. In the previous video, the initial introduction to Docker video, I showed you all the I think 30 plus commands from the terminal, that how we can build an image, how we can run the container out of that image, and all these stuff. Check out the introduction to Docker video on my channel if you want to learn uh, every basics of the Docker and configure it in your system, whether you are using Linux, Mac, or Windows. Okay. So currently this container is running. Let me open up the postman. I cannot call the post request from the browser. So I need to use the React app, or I need to use some kind of postman stuff to add the data in my database. So let's try to add it in my MongoDB. So I've set the post request, I've given the URL, and in the body, I'm just passing the title, my node title one, my node content one. Let me zoom in if I'm able to. Yes, I'm able to zoom in so you can see better. All right. So in this postman, we can actually run this particular script. All right, so let's try to send this out because our server container is running. So let's send this out. All right, so node created successfully. This is the data which is returned from the API that we created. ID and the V node created successfully. Let me show you so you don't get confused. If I open up the index.js, you can see that this post request actually gets called. And this is node created successfully, and this is the node data that it returned. Now, let's try to refresh this page. All right, I've refreshed this page. Now this data is successfully stored in the MongoDB, and this data is successfully fetched from the get API. And this is the data that contains currently. I can send it again. Let me see. All right, so I've sent it again. There should be two datas, two objects for the nodes added. All right, so there are two datas, and over Docker Compose is actually properly successfully compiling the backend project. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop everything. So I'm going to simply hit Control C in my terminal. So it's stopping all the containers. All right. So it's taking some time. Uh, and now it has stopped. I can verify it from my Docker desktop. It has these images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify Docker Compose, and I'm going to add the service for my client as well. So let's write client, and this is going to have the path of Dockerfile for this client is going to be dot build, and this is going to be uh, dot slash and then the client folder, and this is where the Docker file exists. All right, so let's go over here, and container name, let's give it client underscore C. Ports, what we want to give it to. So 3000, this is the port I'm gonna give. Depends upon, I can give that unless and until the backend is not running, I don't want to build an image for the front end using Docker. So I can simply give the name API. API is the name of the service for the backend. So this is going to wait because by default, Docker Compose is not going to run all of these services in sequence. We need to add the depends on. It's not required, but it's up to you. If your front end is totally depending upon the backend, then you can add it. But if the some content is not dependent upon the backend, you want to quickly load and run the front end, then it's not required. It's not even recommended over here. All right, so then I can simply write the volumes as well. So volumes is going to be, let's give it the space slash client and then colon slash client. I've already explained you what these things are doing. So this is going to be the client slash node modules. All right, so I think we are done. One more thing that I want to show you to make our terminal interactive. This is going to be std in open. This is going to be true. And then I'm going to write tty. This is going to be true. Okay, it's a good thing to add for front-end apps. And I think I'm good to go with testing the Docker Compose now. And this is how I'm going to be able to run both the backend and both the front end using one command. One more thing I want to verify. Let's go to app.js, and this is the URL. This is going to be returning me the data from the backend server which I'm running, and the APIs are fetching the data from the MongoDB, as you already know. All right. So what I'm going to do is before writing the Docker compose up, I'm going to delete all the images. First of all, it's not required. I can pass flags to rebuild these images and rerun the containers. But just to let you guys know that if it creates all the images, first I need to delete the containers actually. So I'm going to delete the containers first of all, then I'm going to delete the images. It is going to get deleted. All right. So now I'm going to run the final command here. So I'm going to run docker compose up. Let's see, guys, if it creates the images for both of these projects. In fact, three projects. One is the MongoDB image. Okay. So let's write this down. I'm going to hit enter. So it's actually pulling the MongoDB. I actually deleted it. I should not have deleted this one. It actually cached as well. You can see the size of image, the MongoDB, which is the 30 MB. So it's currently downloading. Once it completes downloading it, it will start running the Dockerfile command of my API project, which is built on Node Express MongoDB. As you guys know, um, okay, it did not cache it. This is what I expected, guys, actually, because I deleted the image and initially did not show the correct size of it. Okay, so let's pause this video and get back to this once it completes downloading this MongoDB image from Docker Hub. All right, guys, so it's finishing up downloading the MongoDB image. Meanwhile, I would request you guys to subscribe my channel and like this video. I hope that you have learned something new from this video. I'm putting a lot of effort creating these videos for you guys. All right, so it has completed downloading MongoDB image from Docker Hub. Now it should start running the Docker file of the backend first of all. And yes, it has started running the npm install nodemon, run npm install, and it's just copying this thing, and after this it should start running the front end project as well. So let's see if it starts running. So it's exporting, so let me allow it. And our backend is running, so it's starting the development server now for the front end as well. So this is the React project, I believe. Let's go to the bottom. So let's see and verify from this one. So both the images are created, the MERN API, MERN client, and the MongoDB. And I'm going to go to the container. You can see that all of these three containers are running in the Docker desktop. I'm going to open up the browser. Let's try to verify. And if I refresh, this is the benefit of volumes that I just showed you, that it persisted the data which I created before. Okay, it fetched out from the cache. All right, and now I'm gonna go and open up the local host colon 3000, and this is where our React project is running. So I'm gonna open up 3000. All right, guys. So our React project is running as well. Our backend is running as well, and these nodes are being fetched from the MongoDB, which is stored. Let's try to add another node here through the Postman. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here in the body. Let's try to change the title as well so you can see the difference. I'm going to add anything like it, and I'm going to send this out. So our backend is running. That's why it has returned this response. Let's verify the API. Yes, and let's refresh the React project as well. All right. So how quick is that? We are able to Dockerize our whole MERN stack application using Docker files and Docker Compose, and we are able to run both the projects with only one command, which is the Docker Compose up. All right. So that's pretty much it, guys. In the next video, I will be talking about configuring Next.js 14 project with Docker that requires server components, client component, and after that, I'll start off creating videos on CI/CDs, continuous integration, continuous development, setting up prettier pre-commit Husky for managing the uh, code quality and the folder structure of the project for multiple team members. And these skills are very much important and required in the development world. If you want to work in an organization, in any company, they demand you to know these basics of Docker, CI/CD. Even for developers, some people find it like this is for the DevOps engineers. No, you have to be a full stack engineer, front end, back end, and deployment stuff as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching again. Do subscribe my channel. I'm putting a lot of effort creating these videos for you guys. Thank you so much for watching again. See you in the next videos.